Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram Om. 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 Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Hari Om to everybody. Pranam, pranam, pranam. What was the important thing that we shared yesterday?
Silence. About silence.
Silence, silence, silence. There we find that when we practice, though it starts with the individual experience, the sense of individuality recedes by itself. And we get a glimpse of the universal reality. Utterance of God's name is to make the mind ultimately still, free from all thoughts. It is in the stillness that you feel and realize God. These are His words. So when we keep on chanting, the Nama helps us to drive away all our thoughts and finally gets concentrated on the Nama chanting. That is also a thought, okay. But ultimately it leads us to the silence within us, which is the base, which is the substratum. Both Bharat Papa and Gurudev Swami Shivanji Maharaj, in simple words, they brought it out. And the journey, if pursued further intensely, perseveringly, it helps us to have a glimpse of our original nature. That is why Papa keeps on hammering to us that name is the link between us and him. The sound which comes from the soundless base is nothing but that base in different form. So that is why Nama and He are one. So for anything and everything, Papa's method is that we should reflect, we should contemplate, we should go within. The other one we have already tried, Chanting we have been doing it for years now, decades now. But it has not taken us to the source within. Though it has helped us in many, many fields, ultimately the real me has not been touched because of even decades of chanting. This is something on which we have to apply our mind deeply. We are chanting the name, we are writing the name. But has it been helpful in touching, in having a glimpse of our original nature? So yesterday through that exercise, they showed us the technique. 23 hammering. Strokes, 23 strokes. So every now and then, suppose we try to go through those words, and later on the words get impressed in our mind, imprinted in our mind. And then when we are alone, when God blesses us with a sattvic mood, when we are free from our routine thoughts, if we try to remember those words, even now while from walking from there to here, the Nama chanting is going on, we are hearing, We are just carried away by that feeling that we are hearing. But suppose we say stop. What happens now? Chanting, the sound comes from a soundless base. So instead of identifying it with the sound, suppose we start dwelling deeper that the sound comes from the soundless base. It will help us a lot. So He is there in the form of stillness, the peace that passeth all understanding. Anybody remembers anything from yesterday's 23 slides? Let us try, Silence is Brahman.
The language of Brahman.
Silence is the language of the Brahman.
Silence is Atman. Silence is the Atman.
Silence is Atman.
Silence is Atman.
Silence gives immense strength.
Silence is immense strength.
Silence is God.
Silence is God.
Silence is the substratum of everything.
Silence is the substratum of body, mind, prana, senses.
Silence is our real home.
Silence is our real nature.
To go into silence is to become God.
To go into silence is to become God.
Silence is purely an experience, Swami.
Silence is an intuitive experience.
Silence is Brahman.
Silence is Brahman.
Silence is immense power.
Immense power.
Immense power. Silence is the living force.
Silence is the mysterious power.
Silence is mysterious is the silence.
Silence is bliss.
Silence is bliss.
Silence is the language of the heart.
Silence is the language of the heart. Silence is the language of the sage. Good, good, good. Then,
Bhajan must lead to silence.
bhajan must lead into silence. Bhajan, Nam Smaran, everything, it should lead us to the silence. The peace that passeth all understanding is silence.
Silence is the core of the being.
Core of the being. Silence is the
Silence, core of our being.
Leads to stillness.
stillness. It leads to stillness.
Stillness.
Yes.
Silence is peace.
Peace.
Peace is silence.
Enter into silence and become silent.
Eh?
Enter into silence and become silent.
Enter into silence.
Yes,
Become silence.
But when you say that, better slow down the speed, Enter into the silence. Know the silence. Realize the silence. Realize God now and here, Because it is not an academic exercise. It is an experiential exercise brought out in the form of some words, that's all. This should not be lost sight of. We are not mugging up something and reproducing something. Because this journey is really a wonderful experiential journey. Words are minimum, and the same word is being repeated, so that it will have its own dent, Otherwise, initially, the moment we get silence, the academic knowledge will tell us absence of so many things. But later on, when the tone, the modulation, that will change depending upon the experiential journey we undertake. So every now and then, now that we are in a position to remember so many things without any external prop, that is enough. Even if we don't remember the whole thing, this is more than enough. Papa's quotation, yes. Utterance of God's name is to make the mind ultimately still, free from all thoughts. It is in this stillness that you know and realize God. So He is the substratum, He is the base. If we don't apply our mind and be in that, we will be simply groping on the dark, groping on the surface, and therefore in the dark. This is a very important word Papa said. Under the banner of spiritual discipline, we are still loitering on the outer surface, We may be hearing discourses, we may be learning slogas, we may be doing puja, we may be chanting Ramnam, we may be doing bhajan. So many things are. But still we are on the outer surface. We have not entered into the inner chambers. That's why Papa clearly mentioned that you will be simply groping on the dark and therefore on the surface. No, it won't be there. It won't be there. Only in the come laptop. Not necessary, not necessary. So this is also we have to be, we have been doing, we don't have to ask somebody, we don't have to see. For how many years, each one can think, how many years now we have been chanting Ram Nam? How many years now we have been taking part in bhajans? How many times we have enjoyed certain songs sung by Bhaktotamas, and how we enjoy all those things. What happened afterwards? Has it been able to lead us to the core of our being? The tangible gain is when we are involved in these surface level activities, at least the mind is not going outside. That is a tangible gain, palpable gain. But later on, when we say go back, just like Papa said the other day, all things are intact in us. The down-pulling tendencies, such are the factors which deny me the knowledge of His presence inside, they are all intact. We have not been able to make a dent on them. So this is very important. Initially Ram Nam chanting, Ram Nam writing, everything helps. But along with that, if we don't bring in this dimension, we continue to stay there and we have some emotional, sentimental satisfaction. But when we deal with men and matters, when we are faced with challenges, we find we are as helpless as we were before. So that is why Papa, in clear-cut terms, he mentioned this. Unless we try to see that this is the basis, the fountain of peace and joy, it is there in us. So our effort is to go to that fountain, feel the fountain. If that is not made, we will be simply groping on the surface and therefore in the dark. The evanescent and transient things, which we enjoy, we will be happy. To be more blunt, we will not be satisfied, then we will not be satisfied with the mere darshan of a saint. Initially that was giving us a lot of joy. And after we are back to square one, has it changed my attitude? What do you call that? Litmus test. Have I been able to get out of the me and mine to some extent? Have I been able to accept every situation cheerfully? Have I been able to see the finger of God in everything? That is the real test. So that is why we have been asked to take to chanting. We have been asked to involve ourselves in all these activities. But unfortunately we got stuck with the activities. There is some impact in us, in our behavior, but not very deep. In the sense that we have not been able to get in touch with the core of our being. Papa, in one of his talks. Somebody asked him, how can we have universal vision? So he says, before you can have the universal vision, you must first realize him within you. This means that you have the knowledge that you are not the body, but the all-pervading, eternal, formless, changeless spirit, whose nature is absolute peace and bliss. Having realized this, you will see that everybody is the expression of that spirit. So whether we are moving toward that, this is important. During our sattvic moods, everything is okay. We are elevated to a different realm. But the moment, it is like snake and ladder, That's when we were playing with snake and ladder. It goes up and up, suddenly it comes back to 1 or 2 again. Similarly, during these moments, our mind is lifted up. But in Papa's word, the bandicoot is here, every time trying to pounce upon us. So given an opportunity, it comes and we fail. So he says, somebody asked Papa, how does a sadhaka know that he is progressing into his sadhana? How to control the restless mind? Papa, as a teacher adopts disciplinary measure to keep under control a mischievous boy in his class, the sadhaka has to exercise constant vigilance over his mind and subject it to strict discipline in order to get control over it. He must see if it harbors any evil thoughts or runs after sense objects. He should ascertain how far his sadhana has helped to destroy the evil vasanas in his mind and make necessary adjustment from time to time to root out these bad tendencies and habits. When evil thoughts and impulses have completely disappeared and the mind is perfectly pure, free from kama and krodha, etc., then he may feel that he is progressing well. Even when the progress seems to be satisfactory, he should not relax his vigilance over the mind. He must strictly pursue his sadhanas, lest the mind should go back to its evil ways. He should resort to solitude occasionally, as it is easy to watch the activities of the mind when one is away from the world and its attractions. When the mind is disturbed for some reason or the other and becomes restless, meditation becomes hard. Now the sadhaka has to find out why and how the mind got disturbed and must remove the causes. Perhaps it was due to some unsuitable food or to the company of worldly-minded people. Once the reason is found out, he must see that he does not commit the same mistake again. The sadhaka's attempt should always to keep the mind in a state of sattva guna. For that, he has to be very strict about his food, association, daily activities. He must take only sattvic food, resort only to the company of good people, and be engaged only in satkarma or good deeds. He must shun the company of those who may tempt him in any manner to take to evil ways. He must frequent the company of saints and devotees as often as possible, read only scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita, and go only to places where God's stories are narrated or where his sweet names are sung. These raise the mind to the sattvic state and enable one to think of God. If one is careless and relaxes the daily discipline, the effect of many days' hard sadhana will be lost in a moment. the snake and ladder. No? The sadhaka has then to strive hard to bring the mind back to the previous state of calmness and purity. So resorting to silence, resorting to solitude. Because if we are to dwell on the silence, a unique facet of the indwelling reality, we should be undisturbed. We must be able to feel the outer silence and that outer silence will slowly lead us to the inner silence. The moment we enjoy an outer silence, the inner silence has been kindled. That is why we are able to enjoy. When we go to the mountain top and when we look from there, for a moment, though the objects are there, along with seeing the wide spectrum of his manifestation, suppose we also enjoy we become aware of the silence without, silence outside. When we are on the ground level, we hear noises. So many disturbances are there. But when we go to the rooftop or the mountain top and we don't discuss anything with anybody and we are just concentrating upon that, the inner alignment with the silence takes place, and the result is that we get a glimpse of our original nature. That could be the reason why Papa resorted to climbing the mountains. You will find in Quest of God as well as in Division of God. It attracts him to the mountain top. It is not for any sightseeing. There the alignment takes place faster, automatically, without any struggle, effortless. And we also know that we have to struggle hard to climb up. When you go to this, what is this place? Bhagamandala, where we can see the origin of Mother Kaveri. Behind that, there is an Agastya Mala. What is now spread there, it was the place where sage Agastya, he did penance there. Anyhow, whatever it may be, it is a steep hillock. So we have to climb up. At the moment you go, and people don't just come back, they go sit there on the top. The view is something, from there, something not merely enchanting, beyond words, beyond words. A lot of mountains are there in and around. Though through the eyes we are seeing, an inexplicable, pleasant feeling wells up in our mind. Nobody talks. Even 3 or 4 people go. Automatically it makes the mind restful. So that is why they prefer to go really to mountains, And all pilgrim centers are located there on the mountain top mainly to teach us this, First of all, to scale the heights, you have to struggle hard. And second thing is, when you reach the top, no one need to tell you that you are enjoying. You have to enjoy. The experience becomes spontaneous. And it is equal to all. Even if nobody thinks in terms of spiritual journey, but he also enjoys. We were just making a mention about the Shirumalai, near Dindikal. So when we were staying there, we were taken to a mountain top, very steep like this. The other day we were sharing, But the moment you go there, the whole scene changes. No activity there. So when we think about silence, so Papa is giving us, what is that? That silence. Silence cannot be explained, It is an experience. And that experience connects us to the core of our being. That is why everybody is happy, Whether he talks about spirituality or God or not, everyone feels equally happy. Because what is it that made him happy? He says beautiful. That's all. Beyond that he will not be able to explain. Suppose he is a good photographer, he takes different clips. And nowadays, of course, videos, so many things are there. So solitude, resorting to mountain top, they slowly help us to have a glimpse of the joy derived from silence. And here the play of the mind becomes less and less. Because you are alone and you have directed it toward the silence. And Papa, of course, here during our Satsang, every day he prompts us to bring out various facets of sadhana. We should also know that through inquest of God, or through prompting us to take an in-depth study of the inquest of God, Papa wants everyone to move from the devotee level to a sadhaka level. As a devotee, we can feel satisfied with whatever we are doing. But that will not help. You remember Puja Swamiji in one of his articles, which has been brought out in Dive Deep and Soar High, he makes a mention about this. That from the devotee level, we have to graduate to sadhaka level. When we reach the sadhaka level, or when we step into the sadhaka level, The first and foremost thing is to go to this ultimate. We are not satisfied with anything less than that. So through In Quest of God, Papa is showing that ultimately you have to reach the state of serenity and peace. A serenity and peace which is everlasting, which is eternal, which is not transient. First chapter he portrayed a person who is passing through a stressful period, full of anxiety, full of tension, full of stress. And the last 37th chapter he says, now he is leading a life of serenity, talking off, writing on, meditating on. The all-loving, all-pervading in Ram. So the indwelling and all-pervading Ram, he was able to experience by this silence. That is why every now and then, if you watch now, if you go through the chapters, every now and then he resorts to solitude. Even when, during the trying moments at Tirupati and such other places, when the Sadhu Ram accompany him, who is like us, though they are free from comfort zones, no doubt the Sadhu Rams are free from comfort zones. But even then when it became very chilly or they became upset. But even on that condition, Papa was able to maintain his equanimity. And he said, this is the right time Ram has provided for Ram Bhajan. Uninterrupted Ram Bhajan. He was able to continue. So free from the comfort zone first. Then again, free from the basic necessities zone. Comforts, necessities, comforts and luxuries, These are the three in that category. So as a bhakta, as a devotee, we are trying to get ourselves freed from the clutches of luxuries to comforts, and later on from comforts to necessities. And in Papa's case, we found even these necessities are transcended. Because holding on to the basic necessities also, that disturbs the peace. If it comes okay, if it doesn't come okay, that state. So the message is that we must upgrade, ourselves from the level of devotee to sadhaka, and sadhaka to serious sadhaka. That is why he prompted us. The very fact that within 2 years he could scale, and we are looking at ourselves 30 years, 40 years, we have been carrying on, but we are not moving toward the core of our being. In 2 years he could do because it was exclusive. We are not exclusively in this. Among various things we also do this. So this has to be reminded to us, So the in-depth study of In Quest of God reminds us that will give us some joy, no doubt. But that is at the devotees level, who are not full-timers. So now we are praying to him to give us sufficient strength to hold on to it exclusively. Because you have relieved us from so many of the encumbrances, personal encumbrances. Suppose a family has to be supported, Suppose a sick patient has to be taken care of in the house. Suppose elderly people are to be taken care of. So many things that we are not much. When we people who are relatively free from all encumbrances, or when God has freed us from encumbrances, should we not make use of this opportunity to intensify? This is the call he gives through in-depth study of In Quest of God. To never relax vigilance. Somebody asks, Papa, I want to repeat God's name. I feel the inner urge to do so, but laziness overpowers me. I want to do it, still I don't do it. What is the remedy? Papa, your awakened intellect asks you to chant Ram Nam, but the tamasic mind pulls you the other way. Both prompt you, but in opposite directions. When you obey the lower mind, you feel lazy and fail to take Ram Nam. But you should not be the slave of your mind which pulls you down. Between the two, you must follow the prompting of the intellect which elevates you. When the mind is restless, even the intellect finds it hard to think calmly. Proper vichara is necessary. It's possible only when the mind is pure, calm, and at peace. Then alone the inner vision is clear. Anything else anybody would like to share? How to get ourselves connected to the silence within, no? Good. It is good that now thought comes. Now for a change we will go through Papa's words about his transition. Papa says, although he has described in the first book In Quest of God and later in the book In the Vision of God, almost all the details relating to his spiritual progress and attainment, still some points have not been touched upon there and some questions regarding the various stages remain yet to be unanswered. Yet to be answered. Therefore, he will start from the very beginning of the new life that came to him. That is when the transformation took place in him in the year 1922. Although the struggle started much earlier, it became intense only in 1922. We found that it was in 1920 that Ram kindled, you remember that word?
First chapter, sir.
It was about 2 years ago in 1920 that Ram first kindled in the heart of his humble slave Ramdas a keen desire to realize his infinite love. Some instrumental causes, all those things we have gone through many times. So now slowly how God made him to recede, withdraw from various other fields to concentrate upon Ram and then to enjoy scale the heights and then to share with everybody. So although the struggle started much earlier, it became intense only in 1922. At that time, his mind was so much absorbed in the remembrance and thought of God that the world was rapidly receding from him. The attraction for the world were gradually disappearing, and he lost all interest in the worldly life because he was solely absorbed in the remembrance of God. It was at that time he used to attend the evening bhajans at his elder brother's house. Elder brother by his old life, to which Ramdas refers as the previous birth. He was drawn there because the brother was holding regular bhajans in his house. They had a clay image of Lord Krishna with fruit in his hand, placed on a raised pedestal. It was modelled after Ravi Verma's picture. Many members of the household used to sit in front of it, perform bhajan. Though Ramdas attended the bhajans, he was not taking part in the singing. He was sitting and simply gazing at the image, listening to the songs. It was at this time he started repeating Ram Nam. He was then beset with worldly worries which virtually drove him towards God. That often happens as worldly difficulties and anxieties create in you a sense of detachment, that is Vairagya. Abhyasa and Vairagya should always go together. In many cases, Abhyasa is not possible because there is no Vairagya. Vairagya gives you a push towards God. God gave Ramdas first bhakti, and as a result of it, Vairagya came. His longing for God became more and more intense, with the result that the attraction for worldly objects disappeared gradually, until at last the bond was completely cut off and he was solely absorbed in God thought. When he was repeating Ram Nam, his Ram Nam at that time was Ram, 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 Ram. No, that was Ram. He found strange peace. While repeating the name, he was not concentrating on any form, within or without. When he was repeating Ram Nam, he found strange peace. While repeating the name, he was not concentrating on any form, within or without. He was only concentrating on the music of the name. He was very punctual in attending the evening bhajans. Now this word, when we go deeper, he was only concentrating on the sound, music of the name. So through the sound, elsewhere he writes, to the soundless. No other thoughts are disturbing, The ambience is so elevating. Everybody is singing the bhajan. He was looking intensely at the charming figure of Lord Krishna. He was not joining the bhajan. He was only hearing. He was not thinking of any name and form then. So that music, slowly connected him to the silence within. But after a few days, Ramdas had to shift to a place far away from his brother's house. So he was denied the privilege of attending the evening bhajans. Thenceforward, Ramnam took deep root in him. It was on his lips constantly, and the struggle to attain the goal grew intense. Although he had no now taste for worldly things, because of the long-standing habit of thinking of worldly objects, the mind used to be dragged to them, and Ramdas felt utterly miserable on these occasions. This is the experience of all devotees. When the mind is drawn away from their beloved Lord to worldly objects, naturally they would feel miserable like a fish thrown out of water. Ramdas's mind was craving for God and God alone. So whenever the mind was dragged down, he was in intense agony. This state is called viraha. Viraha comes only after the first contact with him. When your mind is turned away from thought of God and made to dwell on the objects of the senses, you keenly feel the separation caused by loss of touch with your dearest. This sort of virahatapa used to seize Ramdas off and on. So concentrating on the music, that was the key through which he opened and entered into it. And when he came back, whenever he was disturbed by the usual thought, he was feeling intense virahatapa. Every word is important, We are trying to travel with him mentally. And these are not the things which which involves any tall talk. He was talking about bhajan, he was talking about Ramnam, and through that how he was trying to able to lift himself up from the lower level to a higher level, to a still more higher level. When he was passing through this state, Ramdas's father by his old birth, who later became his guru, heard about his condition and got alarmed. Many disturbing reports reached him that Ramdas was behaving strangely and was neglecting worldly duties. They considered that it was all due to some derangement of his brain, which could be cured by medicine. Such was the impression people had of him, and that was conveyed to his father, who was then in Udupi. As soon as he heard this news about his son, he ran down to see him. He looked at Ramdas and understood him. Ramdas was seen repeating Ram Nam always. Ram, 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 like that. He had lost all interest in the world. The father asked him, "Son, what are you doing?" Ramdas replied, "God is making me repeat Ram, Ram." God is making me repeat Ram, Ram. He looked happier and addressed Ramdas. Who? Father. Father looked happier and addressed Ramdas. Instead of you repeating only Ram Ram, I will give you a mantra which I received from a sannyasi. Just take it. He called Ramdas inside the house, initiated him with the mantra Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, and said, "Son, if you repeat this mantra constantly, you will attain eternal happiness." To the mantra given, there was no prefix of Om at the time. Later on, Ramdas added Om because he was very much attached to Swami Ramtirtha, whose mantra was Om. He thought that Ramtirtha wanted him to add Om to the Rama mantra. Om, the primary nada or original sound, has come from God, the impersonal, infinite reality. Through Om, the whole universe has come into existence. Therefore, Om, made up of the three sounds, Akara, Ukara, Makara, A-U-M, correspondingly signifies the three kalas, three avasthas, three gunas. We are to take our mind to the beginning of all things and merge ourselves in the Nirguna Brahman, and then only shall we realize that the whole universe is filled with the infinite truth and is the manifestation of that. So here come how Papa beautifully in simple language put the necessity for us to have the Nirguna Tattva. Again we remember Puja Mataji's Adesh to all of us to take to reading of In Quest of God 11 times, so that the mind will go within and to get fixed in the Nirguna Tattva. So this is Papa's, you must have read this. But again, when we go through it, with whatever he has facilitated so far, it becomes more and more clearer and clearer to us. The first one was, he was looking at the image, hearing the sound, coupled with withdrawal from the various attractions, pushed because of the adverse circumstances in which he was placed. God made him to go through that adverse circumstances so that he knew the transient nature of the world, and he wanted something that abides in him. So he was able to hear, and through the sound he was trying to connect himself to the soundless base. Even then, you all remember now what he said. He was not concentrating on a name or form. So the concentrating on the Nirguna Tattva had started right from the beginning. Even when he was chanting Ram, 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 when you go to Guruvayur, you will see Narayana, 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 Narayana. Only this. There won't be any prefix or suffix. But to a great extent, how it helps us in controlling the mind to this set to a beautiful tune. You just hear the Narayana Japa going on. So similarly, Papa was chanting Ram, 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 Ram. Then God arranged for his father to come there and give him Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. He did not follow any tradition. Then he later on added Om to it. Normally, we people, when the Upadesha is given by the Guru, we don't do that. Because the Guru wanted us to connect ourselves with the ultimate. Guru gave us one prop, one clue, one hint. And it is left to ours to intensify it, to improve it, to improvise it, in any manner that is suitable for our destiny. So don't get stuck with anything outside. This is another message given to all of us. He was free from all bondages, And why he added Om? 3 avasthas, 3 kalas, 3 gunas, That akara, ukara, makara. That was knowing the significance of the word Om. It was not simply somebody says, we are just chanting it. Everywhere we find this message, reflective, meditative, and deeply contemplating. This is something which we have forgotten all these days. Everywhere we have to do this. As Papa's devotees, if we find we are not scaling the heights, now we know why. We are not applying our mind totally into this and trying to go deep within. And his success was, that is how in 2 years' time he was able to scale the heights. He was never on the surface level. Never on the surface level. Deep level. So yesterday he made us to think about silence. Today he is making us a methodology to reach that silence. So let us all do some deep thinking on these aspects, so that our move towards it becomes faster and faster. Hari Om. Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram 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 Om Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om. Pranam, Pranam, Pranam. Pranam, Pranam, Pranam. Pranam.